Oh, Stephanie, what brings you here today?
Hey, how you doing? Well, just, got some things I want to get off my chest.
All right.
I don't know if I like that term, though. It kind of makes me feel... I don't know. I think that's another thing that's another thing that I'd want to talk about is, identity things, and that creates a lot of anxiety within me. But, one of the main anxieties would be sort of what I was talking about earlier is, I was terrified of dying, or that everyone else was going to die around me, like, for a long time after my sister passed away. Like, she, and I met an artist who, he kind of got it in his artwork, and I related so well to it, and I talked to him afterwards, and I was like, hey, like, your whole talk made so much sense. He was like, isn't it weird, like, once you're touched by death, like, it's something that kind of haunts you. And I think that was one of those ways that I was reckless with myself in high school. It was just like, it wasn't that I was trying to, like, off myself, and I still feel to this day that I would never get to that point where I would actually follow through with, killing myself or being suicidal like that, because I never did. I never got that way. But I felt like growing up so fast that, like, my mind got really dark, and I can get really dark, and I can think about it. But I've always been the type of person who's like, I gotta get that dark, and maybe I can even have these horrible, horrific ideas and thoughts as long as they're in my head, and, like, that's okay. But I gotta think them out, because if I don't think them out, they're just gonna fester. And so I think that's one of those things that, like, that's like the basis of, I think, all of.
So the death of your sister really, affected you in more than just, your sister passing, but, long-term effects from this.
Yeah, no, most definitely. The kind of anxiety that, the first time I ever had my first anxiety attack, I had one anxiety attack, was super weird. I never thought that the room was entirely black. I was working at one of my work study jobs, and there was something with electricity happening, and I was in this room, and I knew exactly where I was at. I was standing with another person, and the lights went blacked out, but I was already feeling all sorts. I had been going through, like, there was a lot of angst and all sorts of depressing thoughts and whatever. I was having a hard time being separated from my friend Maria, and so, like, it was like separation anxiety on top of being new to something, and I panicked. I didn't know. I felt like I didn't know where I felt like I was gonna die, I guess. Like, that being in complete darkness had never done that to me before, and I'd never felt that way before. And so I started kind of, like, hyperventilating and, like, getting dizzy and, like, pretty much start to bawl. I had to like let myself out, and as soon as I hit, like, fresh air, I just waterworks, just, like, super, just,
Any reason of why that happened at that moment, or?
I felt that maybe I was just, like, I was stressed out about school, stressed out about my job, stressed out about, like, being by myself. I feel like the whole losing my little sister, I overcompensated. I didn't want to be known as someone who was sad or, whatever. So I was the class clown growing up in school. And so, I think that's just part of my personality, is I'm super social, and I tend to, like, need to be around people. And so at that time, I didn't have a group that I was around. So it was like still being alone, not having that social connect. So.
And not feeling like you fit in
yeah.
a particular group of people.
Yeah, definitely. And then on top of, I was about to deal with the fact that, I'm different than everyone else, like, I was coming out. And that's just to think about it. It kind of was terrifying, because, like, I knew that I had a small circle of friends who, okay, fine, we've known since forever. But it was the idea of losing family members or losing friendships, and that I mean that was crushing because in a sense I have been the type of person like I need you to like me, I need to be liked, I need to be loved, like anything I like the fact of being who I am to jeopardize that was just, you know, it was terrifying. It was just like super.
Did you lose much family and friends from when you came out?
I can't say that I did. I can't say that I did because.
But the worry was there.
The worry was there, you know, and I knew, you know, me and my mom, like it was hard for her, and I knew that was probably the one person, you know, that was gonna struggle with it, and I was terrified about my dad too, just because like, you know, he doesn't say a lot, so I was just like, does this change anything between me? Like it's not like we have this super close bond anyways. It's like that even gonna make him even further and more distant away, you know? And so, and then like my brothers, it didn't even really faze me. It was just like, I guess it was mostly my parents, mostly my mom and dad.
Were you not super close to your brothers at that point, or?
It wasn't that we were super close. We just didn't know each other, to be honest with you. Because whenever my oldest brother, who I now live with, like he was already out of the house. Like so he by the time I was a teenager or even in college, like he didn't know who I was. He was living somewhere else, and so it was not like it was something that would have affected me like, you know, daily or whatever. And then I felt like the brother that I am closer to, I felt like that we talked so much that he would have been accepting of it too. So it was really, I think, I guess the fact that like maybe my family too, because I like to, you know, pride myself on being the favorite,
Right.
the favorite of on both sides, really, the both sides of the family, you know, and to not have that sense of, you know, favoritism, or for them to look at me different, or even to be out in the public eye. I feel like the one time I cut my hair, and it was a second coming out. Because of how I looked. I had never experienced being, how would you say it? Like being discriminated against for who I was by my appearance. I mean, yeah, I maybe got picked on for being chunky like in school, but that was completely different than.
But that's also, you grew up here in Pasadena, large Hispanic community, you know, where
culturally, you know, rounder people are,
Right.
you know, the norm. So yeah, exactly. But culturally, gay people are not the norm whatsoever. And I wasn't in like school that, you know, whatever. I mean, you're in a university, everyone's gay, I guess, you know.
And you didn't figure this out about your sexuality while you were in high school, or you didn't come out while you were in high school.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Did it happen because you were kind of worried about it, or did you just kind of keep it inside until you got off to college?
I felt like I knew, like it had already surfaced coming out of high school, but I wasn't ready to accept it because it wasn't on top of you know, the concern, anxiety over what my family would think of it. It was also me. It was really hard for me to accept that's who I was, you know, and you hear it all the time. It's just like, you know, there's so much shame, and it was just like, why am I feeling this? Like, what the fuck? Like, I shouldn't, and that's hard to get over though. It's super hard to get over, and you know, I've read a lot. I looked up websites. I used to try to find anything in media that was, you know, related to me, or like gay novels, you know, or like gay fiction online. And that was one of the ways that like I was like, okay, like I can relate to. I also had a cousin who was like a second cousin who, I mean, she she was raising her gay flag like in high school, you know, so she was super confident in herself, and that was someone who I could talk to.
That's
and
good.
and
That's
it-
the way to talk to you.
yeah, but it was still like we weren't super close though, so it was like one thing, but at the same time I still felt really like I didn't have any friends. None of my friends were in any remotely way that way. So I had no like real gay community, and I think I still struggle with that. Like I don't know how the lesbians are.
Is it that you don't involve yourself necessarily in that community, or is it because it's not part of necessarily your comfort zone in your community?
It started with not being my comfort zone. I think that's really something that I noticed too when I was younger, that I had a really hard time talking about sex. Like it made me uncomfortable, you know, because I didn't want to talk about it because I knew that like it made me feel comfortable when like my girlfriends would talk about like, oh well, you know, this guy and that guy, and it was just like I don't think about guys that way at all. I think about girls that way, but like you'll probably be repulsed if I say that, you know. And it was that fear of, you know, expressing how I felt about sexually about, you know, the opposite or same sex, and it just made me uncomfortable because I was insecure about it, and I didn't know how to talk about it. And so it's been over time that like now I'm super open, super confident, and it really I guess that was like kind of a spiraling like depression, like kind of whirling in anxieties all for a long time, and that not being secure, not being comfortable with who I was.
That can be a big thing if you're not sure, you know, who you are and why you're that way.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's frustrating because it's like I never felt comfortable. One of the my main things that gave me a lot of anxiety was shopping, because I never felt comfortable in the women's department, and I didn't feel comfortable in the men's department. I was like, where's that in between, like androgyny, like
Right.
real like streamlined fashion? That doesn't exist. Everything is really polar. Like either you look like a girl or you look like a boy, and like there's no in between. Or in my head, there was no in between to be that creative. Yeah, like there are definitely people who mix and match. You know, I just never had that. I just didn't know, like, I wasn't around that. I wasn't around such an open-minded community, you know, like, and so it really bothered me, because, like, I didn't know, I felt really conflicted, because I was like, I honestly didn't want to be known as, like, being a butch. Like, there was such a negative connotation.
You wanted to be a lesbian female.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be a lesbian female that looks male.
But I also felt like I couldn't relate to the lesbian female like mentalities,
Right.
like because I wasn't, you know, I grew up with two parents who worked with their hands all the time, you know, and it, like my mom, she's not the most feminine woman. I mean, I don't wear makeup now, but we never had to sit down like, hey, this is how you do your makeup, you know. And if anything, I learned like hair and beauty and all that stuff from friends, you know. That just wasn't a priority for her, you know. She was one of those, like, a working mom who just, you know, was always doing something, like either, like, whether it be housework to crafts or just, you know, or she was an outside person, so it was, like, never, you know, it wasn't a big part, a priority or a part of her life.
Even whether you were lesbian or not, that's still part of who you are.
Yeah.
The lack of the frills is who Stephanie Gobea is, you know, whether you're a straight woman or a lesbian woman. So you have to, I guess, you know, the acceptance of that in today's society too is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So how did, you know, as you made it through college, how did the acceptance of your, you know, of your sexuality, how far along did it take you through? Because you know, you figured it out just towards the end of high school. How far into college did you start really truly accepting yourself?
It was like I was at college for 5 years. My final 2 years, I was in an emotional relationship with the girl, not a physical, which it was another one of those things that we didn't have boundaries with each other. Like I was always with her, always. I mean, I spent the night at her house, slept in her bed, like cuddled her, but it was like that was as far as it went. And so that being in that kind of a relationship was like the final like all right, you're really into chicks, I'm having like I have such like strong romantic feelings for this woman, like I can't deny that. Like this, like I want to be with her. Like I want to be with her physically. I want to be with her. Like I'm so tied to her emotionally. Like I care about her. Like, you know, she was my girlfriend. It was something, and I like that relationship was the thing that like I was like, okay, like this is who I am, and I'm gonna accept it. And so that was when the haircut happened too, and like I said, it was like a sort of a second coming out, and I remember crying about it, and it was just like I was like, I got dirty looks today. Like I got dirty looks, and it was really hard for me to deal with. And then I realized like I had to go through that. Like I had to go through that to get to even more of a place of comfortableness with myself, you know.
And understanding who you are.
And understanding who I was, for sure.
So you seem to be very, at this point in your life, very getting to be more comfortable in your own skin, you know, and understanding, you know, your own situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, hopefully by the next time we get together, you know, we can share a little bit more about, you know, your progression to where you are now. So thank you for coming in today.
I would like